and we're live. So,
Are
so
we though, Trinity? Are we? Are we live? Are we living? I mean, we're live, but are we living?
that's a good question.
You know what I'm
That's
saying? I
Isn't
mean,
that like the proverbial question right there? Like,
right.
was it to be, not to be? Are we living, or are we just alive? I don't. I don't really have the answers to those questions for you either.
Are they too complicated for right now?
Those are individual questions that need to be uh, looked into, I guess.
All right. All right.
So, anyways, are you ready for me to?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Probably
ready.
helps if we put these things on, huh? There we go.
Oh, there you go.
That's right.
I'm ready to go. Let's do the show.
Okay, let's uh let's do the thing, man.
Mm-hmm.
Shut up and sit down.
Boom.
Boom.
It's a beautiful
So
boom.
it's so violent compared to what we actually do.
It's a beautiful boom, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It gets the point
Anyway.
across, that's for sure.
Anyway, welcome to the Couch Live, which is a version of Dope and Dharma. It's couch. It's the Couch Live edition of Dope and Dharma. I'm the street certified dope Dr. Louis Delgado here with you, along with Trinity Phillips, the Dharma guy. What's up, brother?
Hey, what's up?
Fantastic. You want to tell everybody what show, not what show we're doing, because I already said that, but where they can hear us, because right now we're on WOKB and stuff like that. So go ahead.
Yes, if you're local on Monday nights, you can check us out on WOKB 1680 AM or 100.7 FM.
Mhm.
And then if you want to join in on the discussion live on Mondays, Tuesdays, or usually Fridays, you could do so on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch live under Dope and Dharma.
Mhm.
And if you want to catch us at your leisure, you can do so on any major podcasting platform under Dope and Dharma.
Yeah. You notice I had you do that today.
Don't I usually do that? Like,
Not the part of WOKB
oh,
1680. I had you do it that time
forgot,
because
didn't
I said the dial last time, and you got
you?
all over me about it.
You
So
said the dial, yes.
I did. So I let you do that
And I
this
said
time.
fisticuffs later
That's
on,
right. That's
just
right.
to
You
poke
did.
fun.
That's right. You did. We got Shaw, the producer, over there at home base. What's up, Shaw? How you doing? So let's go ahead and do this, Trinity. I wanted to talk about self today. We often talk about what the community. We talk about other things that you may do to yourself, but I think about, and did you notice we reversed it, right? Instead of saying self healing, I said heal self, right? Because we always
Yes.
talk about self healing,
Self
and
care.
self care, and all that stuff is great, but it's just the rebel in me wanted to reverse it. Heal self,
Let's do it.
and I'll tell you why I want to talk about this, Trinity, and then we'll break it down. It's 5 parts that I want to talk about today. So if you're listening right now here at WOKP, or whether you're listening on a podcast, or whether you're watching this on YouTube, there's 5 different parts that we're going to talk about today. And hopefully at the end of this, you'll understand why we wanted to talk about it today. Because the Couch Live, this version of Dope and Dharma, talks about drugs, alcohol, recovery, all the stuff that we need to do to just be better to ourselves. Like, we hurt ourselves, right? And Dharma time, we talk about spirituality. So how we can use spirituality to enrich ourselves and stay a confident, beautiful person that we're supposedly meant to be, right? And I say supposedly because some of you just don't even think that's true, but I want it to be true. So in this topic today, the self, it's because I think the worst threat to self is the self, Trinity. Nobody hurts you more than you hurt yourself. And that's why negative self-talk is so poisonous. So I definitely want to cover that. Second biggest threat to self is the family. I think their actions and their words cut much deeper than anybody else's words, and it can last a lifetime. And many times when we do therapy and counseling on somebody, it's words and things that got said by a family member early on that they still carry around. The third biggest threat to self is your inner circle. Because you want and need their love, you need their support, you want their support, and when you don't get it, it's hurtful and it's very painful when those that you care about, the friends that you have close and near and dear to you, when they cheat on you, or they mistreat you or steal from you. It's very painful. The fourth biggest threat is that of community. I think we crave acceptance, and we hate to experience not belonging to our community or to aspects of it. The fifth biggest threat to self are strangers. We don't understand why they feel the way they do about us. They don't even know us. So that really frustrates us when people you don't even know don't accept you, or don't want you around, or whatever. And then despite strangers, being the least threatening to self, right? Despite them being the least important, Trinity, it's strangers that we focus the most on in regards to I will feel better as a person if you as a stranger love me, if you as a stranger care about me. And that's absolutely ludicrous. And because we've been hearing so much about that in the news, if you don't have to follow politics and what's happening in our communities to hear how many times people are focused on strangers and how strangers feel about them rather than what I feel is the most important. So let's start from the least important, strangers, Trinity, and I'm going to ask you. Okay, let's start.
All right.
I'm
Oh
going
boy.
right to you.
This is,
So,
I didn't study. Is this okay? Or?
yeah, I think you'll still do well. You were an A student, regardless, and I'm sure you
All
didn't
right.
always study. You just were naturally an A student.
All
So,
right, let's do it.
strangers, Trinity.
Okay.
We put a lot of importance on strangers, right? And I'm not saying strangers can't hurt you. I just think there's a big difference than when a stranger calls you a name and somebody closer within the other four circles call you a name, right? So let's talk about strangers. Like, what's the importance of strangers?
That's an interesting question. Because as I've evolved over the years, strangers are probably the least important to me now. But they were the most important to me when I was younger, right? When I was younger and I had an ego that was out of control and I felt the need to prove to everything. Maybe to a certain extent, I was questioning my own value, right? Like,
Right.
I was able to pontificate to people about my value,
Mm.
but I don't know if I really believed it, right? Like I was still trying to convince myself more so than other people.
Okay.
So at that point in my life, the way strangers treated me and viewed me was absolutely important. However, as I've gotten older and I know my value, and I just become more and more disinterested in what strangers think or feel. Mainly just because they don't know me, right? Like they
Right.
got their own things that they're worried about, their own life, and
Right.
when they say or do something to me, I think now in my life it reflects more on them than it does on me.
Mhm.
Right? Like if they say something to me, I instead of taking it personal and getting mad, I'm thinking, that's where you're at in your life. That made you feel good to say that,
Right.
then go for it. But I didn't have that kind of wisdom when I was younger, though. When I was younger, it was, who are you talking to like that? Who you disrespecting and blah blah blah.
You brought up a good point. You said that the strangers kind of attack the ego a little bit. I like
Yeah.
that. I
Yeah.
wasn't thinking about that. So let's talk a little bit more about that ego and how it's affected by strangers, because maybe they just might hit the ego a little bit deeper than other people, because again, remember, they're not supposed to know you.
Yes.
So for them to dislike you or say something negative to you, it's like, wait a minute, are you not believing the story that I'm presenting? Are you not believing the image that I'm trying to create for you?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's the thing is I don't think even most people even realize what the ego technically is, right? Like
Right.
the ego is just this. It's not how we are; it's how we want to seem, right?
Mhm.
Like the image, the ego is this beautiful, Michelangelo painting that I'm going to put out to the world. You don't get to see the behind part where it's all like ripped and
Right.
torn and
Right.
patched together with stuff. No, that's not what I'm going to show you. And so
Mhm.
I think when somebody shatters this image that we've created, I think it kind of cuts a little deep, because it's like, well, wait a minute, because we all, that's the funny part though, right? Is like most of us really aren't doing a great job, but we think we are.
Right.
Like we convince ourselves, and that's the ego talking, that we're such amazing con artists that we are able to present this to the world and nobody knows.
Yeah.
And so when somebody calls us out on it or even touches a little bit below the surface, we don't respond well to that. We get very defensive and we go in attack mode, or we get very offended. And I think that's because it's the whole Wizard of Oz thing, right? Like pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, but as I've gotten older, I think I've learned how to tame the ego a little bit. Have I tamed it all the way? Probably not, and I never
Right.
will. But I've done a better job at taming it now than I did when I was younger. And so, yes, when it comes to community, I see the difference, and I do
Well,
think
we're
it
not on
comes with
community
age.
yet. We're not on community
No,
yet.
I'm sorry, strangers.
Strangers.
Strangers, excuse me.
Right.
I am jumping the gun there.
Yeah, you are.
When it comes to strangers, I meant the community as like outside of
Right.
this,
Right.
the proverbial community. But so I think when I see older individuals who have lived a life they typically seem to be doing better when it comes to the way they respond to strangers
Mm.
than like younger generations. Like I look at my son, and he's so obsessed sometimes with what random strangers will say, think, or feel about him.
Mm.
And when I talk to older individuals, they really couldn't care any less. And I think that has to do with the our ability to tame the ego, man. I think when we're younger, we really truly are trying to establish who we are, not only to the world but to ourselves.
Right.
And so it's quite devastating when somebody's not buying what you're selling.
Right.
Like,
So it's less painful, but for some reason we focus a lot on it because
well, yeah, I think the reason why is because we know that our family and friends and stuff know that part of us because they see us every day. We expect them to know a little bit.
Right.
But when the stranger sees it, it's like your whole world crashes down because maybe you're not as good at faking it as you thought you were.
Right. Or because your family ignores it or buys it, they want to buy it. Like,
Yeah,
your family wants to
It
believe
might be
you.
easier
You're
to buy
truthful and honest. Your friends want to believe you.
Yeah.
Strangers, they don't have a dog in the fight, so they can care less whether they believe you or not. So sometimes, they're calling it the way they see it without worrying about your feelings, right?
Yeah.
So much. But it's weird how much focus we put on strangers to make us feel good about ourselves when as we can clearly see, even just from this discussion, they really matter the least because it's a screen of what they know. It's just a snapshot of us of what they know, right?
Well,
They don't go home with you.
Against too.
Well, yeah, they don't go home with you. They don't know all your inner
Exactly.
thoughts. They don't know your history. They don't know where you come from. They don't know what you've experienced. So why does it even really matter what they think and feel?
Yeah.
Who cares what a stranger thinks and feels about you? But, however, you, on the other hand, can help a stranger just by giving them a little bit of kindness, a little bit of smile, a little bit just eye contact, not ignoring them when you walk by. That simple gesture on the reverse side is actually better than when someone close to a person gives it to them, because it's like, wow, that person gave me kindness and didn't even need to. They didn't even have to. So all right, so you said community because you already jumped the gun, so let's go.
Well, I meant community as in the community is the world, not necessarily.
You're forgiven then. You're forgiven.
Yeah.
So what about community? Community is one of these things that now in the community they may or may not know you, right? You might have a certain job within your community, right? Because strangers, they don't even know what you do for a living, but in your community they may know that you work at the local Publix, right? They may know you work at the local McDonald's. Right. They see you around. They watch you ride your bike around town, or they know the kind of car you drive, right? And so when your community says something negative about you, it is hurtful, right? A little bit more hurtful than strangers, because it's like, I'm of service to us. It's not, I'm not taking from my community. I'm giving to my community. I'm providing. Let me just do my deal. Let me just work. Let me just be part of it. I want to belong, right? We have a sense of belonging with our community, and we don't like to be like not allowed in, right? So like if there's a gate, like I live in a gated community, so it's like that gate specifically says, if you don't live here or belong here, if you're not a member, like it says membership only on some of the signs.
You get your jacket on, your members only jacket.
Yeah, you're not even allowed in. You know what I mean? And we don't like that. We like the doors open to us within our community. So what do you think about that?
And so by community, you're referring to like coworkers, neighborhoods, like
not coworkers. That's a little bit closer. Just neighborhood.
So what's your definition of community? Neighborhood. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. To me, I think that we're going to notice a trend as we continue on with here, and that's just the connection, right? Mm-hmm. So like strangers, it's the least connected to us.
Right.
And so it's easier to get offended by somebody that there's no connection with at all. With our community, there's a little bit more of a connection, so it probably stings just a little bit more.
Right.
You expect more. You already have rapport potentially with them. You might not be friends, but they know of you. They've never seen you. You probably have never injured them in some sort of a way, and so you expect a certain level of mutual respect, I guess, or commonality.
Yeah.
And so whenever it's like you're giving them just enough rope, and when they use it against you, it stings a little bit, because it's like, wait a minute, it's like an act of betrayal almost. Right. It's like we're in the same group here, man. We're supposed to be on the same team, and why'd you do that?
Right.
Even though realistically speaking, how much of the same team are they really on if they're just in your community? But we still treat them that way,
Well,
or we expect that of them.
Well, it's interesting that you say same team, because I always think it's interesting when, like, there's certain people that prey upon others, right? That rob
Right.
them or hurt them or steal from them, but yet on football Sunday, you're all wearing the same colors, right?
Yeah.
but then after that football game's over, you're back to being an enemy in the community again.
Right.
You know what I mean? But for that moment when you're watching the game, that's your community, right?
Yeah.
You're saying your team is the best team, and you're all like high-fiving each other at the game, and then
Yeah.
Monday morning you're back to don't be in my neighborhood after dark, brother.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
and even still with the community, it has to do with ego still. I mean,
Right.
the ego's this pesky little thing that doesn't go away really, right? Like it's this like nasty pimple on your forehead that everybody gets to see and you can't hide it, right? Like, and so, yeah, I mean, as the closer you get to the core, the ego gets more and more offended, basically. And so, with a stranger, you can always you could essentially brush it off and just get mad with, I'll never see them again. They don't know
Right.
anything. Who cares? With
Right.
community, you might have to see them again. You might see them occasionally throughout the day, whatever. They might know some of the same people potentially.
Yeah.
And so you're a little bit more offended. They're not as easily brushed off. Right? You might have to actually explain an interaction or two with them. And there might actually be dialogue. So yeah, it's a little offensive. It's a little like it's hurtful because it's like, you're close enough to you might not know, but you're far enough away. So it's like you break it through the ego is just like, ooh, man, maybe once again, you could argue that the stranger just might have gotten lucky, right? Or you could argue to everybody else that they're completely wrong. They don't have any evidence. Well, one step closer in the community, they might have an interaction or two that would show evidence of what their stance is. And that injures the ego just a little bit more because now you're going to have to, if it's contrary to what you believe you are, then you might actually have to defend it. You might actually have to address it.
Yeah, but they're still not supposed to know the inner workings of who we are.
No, not at all.
We're still supposed to be able to get away with the image.
We're good
right?
at hiding it, right? We're
the vehicle we drive. The vehicle you drive is still very important at that level, at community, right? It matters,
Yeah.
All right. So getting closer to the middle of the onion. Number 3, let's talk about your inner circle, your friends, your coworkers, people that you spend a little bit more time with. Now, these people you spend time with.
Yeah.
So they see you a lot more. They hear you a lot more. Now, these people, it hurts a little bit deeper if they don't accept you or if they take issue with you, because it's not so easy to just not see them again, to not be around them again. These people you have to see on a frequent basis, whether it be daily or whether it be at certain events. So this is a little bit harder. So what do you think about your inner circle?
Well, see, when I think inner circle, I think it's right there at that line where it's kind of tricky.
Okay.
Meaning it's tricky in the sense that if you're my inner circle and you say something that's hurtful, instead of me really truly like, I have a decision to make. Do I want to listen and give you the respect of knowing that you're in my inner circle, and therefore maybe your words have a little bit more weight than I would like to, but you're in my inner circle, so I respect you obviously, so I should listen. Or it's really easy now because I have ammo too. So now I can get defensive and immediately attack anything that you've ever done ever.
Great point.
And tit for tat kind of a situation. So it's a decision that you can make now. And like with the strangers in the community, you might not have any ammo, right? Strangers, you almost have no ammo other than maybe physical appearance or whatever they're doing.
Right.
Community, you might have some ammo that you might know that maybe, I don't know, they didn't pay for that house or who knows. Inner circle, I know what you did last week, right? Like I remember when we were in college, what you did here, like I've got ammo,
Right.
and so that's that weird gray areas. How do you respond to it? Because when it hurts, do we look inward or do we attack? And they're very easy to attack because you have ammo.
So do you think by having that ammo, somehow you feel less pain, or you heal better by having ammo, or it just allows you to deflect more?
It allows you to deflect, man. That crab's in a barrel. Oh, you're going to put me? Oh, okay, I'm going to pull you down too. So therefore we're all down.
So now we're both in pain.
Exactly. and the world isn't looking at my pain because I just threw yours out there as well. So now maybe, they don't pay attention. It's like the athlete who did something wrong. You can't wait for the next one to do something wrong. So they're not talking about you anymore.
Wow.
And so I think that's where that dynamic kind of comes in, and I think that's where friends can kind of hurt one another,
Right.
because they're unwilling to listen, I guess.
Yeah, I think the inner circle is where it gets really interesting because these
Yeah.
are people that you've chosen.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like friends.
Yeah.
So when your friend lies to you or cheats, either cheats on you or cheats, or allows someone to cheat on you. Because remember, an inner circle can include your, uh, not your loved one if you're married to the loved one, but your boyfriend, girlfriend situation. So,
Ooh, you're drawing a line there. Okay.
well, I inner circle counts. That's part of your inner circle.
Sure.
It's not blood related, but I've chosen to. How sometimes people say, family doesn't have to be blood. It's usually people that don't have a lot of blood family, or they have a real
Right.
negative or bad situation at home where they
Right.
create family outside of blood, right? But that's the inner circle, really.
Yeah.
That's how much importance they put on their inner circle. These are people that may agree with you. These are people that you choose to hang out with. You have similar hobbies to, so they're supposed to be in your camp, right? So there's
Well, you've confided in them, man. Like,
right,
yeah.
right, and so it is more painful than if your community has issue with you or if you're a stranger. Matter of fact, it's your inner circle that you tend to use to fight against community or strangers, right? It's your inner circle that you
Yeah.
call on the phone. You say, "Can you believe that these jokers are on the corner with this kind of flag on the corner, having people honk for who they're voting for? Let's go out there and argue with them. Let's drive by and flick them off or whatever." It's your inner circle that you're
Yeah.
in the car with doing that with.
Well, I think what's making it more complicated is I'm trying to look at this, as we're talking,
Mhm.
um, going from the ground up, right, from level 5
Right.
all the way up to number 1.
Right.
There's a key thing there that I think gets more intense
Mhm.
as we go,
Right.
and that's expectations,
Okay.
right? My expectations for strangers is
Mhm.
I don't even know you, whatever, who cares?
Right.
My community, I have a little bit more expectation, but not a lot. You're in the community. I
Mhm.
expect you to be a little bit nicer than some random person I went at Walmart.
Right.
My inner circle, like, you're my boy, dude. Like, I expect a lot. I expect
Right.
loyalty. I expect respect. All these other things. And then as we go up in the ladder, those expectations become bigger and more intense and more deep rooted.
Right.
And so I think with the inner circle, um, yeah, there is a amount of expectation of loyalty and things of that nature. So when they go outside of that, we tend to not think as much of their perspective and how they're hurting or what they're
Mhm.
been through, excuse me, versus, hey, I had these expectations that you just didn't hit, and that hurt.
Right. Right.
And so I think at the end of the day, obviously you and I both know that's what it is, right? Your feelings are hurt, your expectations weren't met, but instead of acknowledging that, you talk about it like they wronged you, like it was betrayal or something like that. Even though we
Mhm.
both know it wasn't really betrayal, they're living their best life and screwing it up just like you are. You know?
Right. And this anger could be a lot more. Anybody out there listening to this, it's true. The anger that you have towards somebody that you're in your inner circle that has wronged you is deep.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
deeper. It's like, how dare they?
yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we used to be boys, man. We used to be friends. What happened to you? And it's always the other person. Like, what happened to you?
That's
You
what
know
I'm
what I
saying.
mean?
Like,
Like, what I mean?
yeah,
How could you betray me like that? So you're absolutely right. The expectation is that you're supposed to be able to hold on to this information without going outside of us and talking on this
yeah,
and speaking on this and sharing that with anyone else. You're supposed to keep that to yourself. Um, so it is a little bit deeper. Um, and again, because there's so many different layers to that inner circle
yeah.
that the inner circle has multiple layers even within it.
Of course.
Some just because you're coworkers, that's one thing. But if I choose to work there because we're both going to go get that job together, that's a little bit deeper. So like if I walk, I almost expect you to walk with me. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Yeah.
they wronged me. How can you still work there, man? I walked out,
No.
and then you stay. That's problematic.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, even with inner circle, there's acquaintances that you hang out with every now and
mhm,
then there's people you're on the phone with daily.
mhm,
Like there's
yeah.
and with each one comes its own set of expectations.
Yeah, I think you're dead on with that. I think this is where expectations become an issue.
Very much so.
Yeah, like
And,
before
and none
this,
of
like
us.
you said, who cared?
My favorite thing that I always piss people off when we do our groups and stuff or whatever,
Uh-huh.
but you never really hear unless a person's like unreasonably healthy. And there's not too many of those people walking around. So you almost never hear, man, I really had some messed up expectations there. My expectations let me down. You never hear that. It's always, I can't believe you did this. They did this. They pissed me off. They did whatever. It's like, not really. It was your expectations. Like we did a show on Dharma Time, right? About they don't have to meet your expectations, but
That's right.
you almost never hear that. It's always them. It's always you did this. Meanwhile, they might be going through their own struggles or whatever, but it doesn't matter, man. Like you hurt me.
Right.
That's how we see it anyway.
Yeah. This is where even you're reminding me of like situations that people sometimes complain about, like when they say, "I can't believe that person cheated on me," and then I'll be like, "Well, how did you meet them? Weren't you cheating? Wasn't that person cheating when you met them?"
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that was different. Well, if they cheated on that person to be with you, what makes you think that they're not going to cheat on you with the next individual? I mean, that person clearly was already showing you who they were, and you say it all the time. They showed you who they were, right? Sometimes we just don't want to believe them.
Yeah.
Or I know this has happened to you because this used to happen to me, early on, like when I first met Dana. I used to try to explain certain friends, and then the ones that I knew could be problematic in one way or another, I would just say, but that's just him. Like, that's just that dude. You'd always try to explain to somebody that somehow, he's a liar, cheating, a thief, or he curses a lot, fights a lot, does a lot of dirty stuff, tells bad jokes, whatever. But you're like, but that's just who he is. You're supposed to accept him the way I accept him,
right?
Because you don't think that stuff is going to be offensive to you. It's not going to turn around and bite you. But when it does, then you're like, oh, wait a minute. I don't care if you do that to other people, but you ain't supposed to do it to me.
Right.
Right.
Yep. There goes those expectations again.
Yeah, but the girls always would catch him though, man. They always knew. They go, "How could you hang out with that guy?" And you're like, "What him? Oh man, that's just the way he is."
Yeah,
that's because he's not doing it to you.
Yeah, exactly.
But are you supposed to be okay with their morals? Because if they're in your inner circle, really, you're co-signing the morals, right? I mean, you're kind of co-signing who they are.
Well, you are who you hang around with, man. It was that old phrase of if you go to bed with a dog, you wake up with fleas. Your friends are like elevators. They take you up and they take you down. Like all these dad phrases I've told my kids left and right. And my mom told me the same. Yeah. But even those I had to learn the hard way. Like I had to get burnt because that's the thing. That's the problem, right? When it comes to inner circle. More so than the other two, to be honest with you.
That's what I'm saying. This is where it gets serious.
Yeah, because the other two, the top two, which we haven't gotten to yet,
right?
There's a certain almost requirement, right? Like, but the inner circle, I'm a good judge of character, right? Like I chose you, I know you better than anybody. Like you would never do that, and because I spent X amount of hours with you, or we've had conversations, I suddenly know you better than anybody. And that's a hard lesson. I've watched my kids, my two older ones, and even my younger ones are now getting to the age where they're starting to learn that. You don't know people the way you think you do. I mean, John Wayne Gacy was married. His wife had no clue he was, killing and chopping up kids and putting them in the basement. And so if there's men out there or people out there who can have whole other families or be serial killers and stuff, and their significant others who lived with them for years had no idea, why do you think that you're going to know somebody because you spend, a few hours a week with them? Like, I'm not saying you don't know anybody, but we always seem to forget with our inner circle, especially. Like you don't quite know them the way you think you do, because we've all seen those stories come up where somebody's caught doing something, they murdered or they did something crazy illegal, and there's always an interview. I had no idea. Nobody ever knew, right? There's a couple people probably, but for the most part, there's so many people in their lives that just had no idea, and so it's like we forget that for some reason. We'll do that with strangers and community. We'll accept the fact that we don't know them, even though with our inner circle, we've only spent a fraction of more time with them than we have those other people. Yeah. But for some reason, we just assume that gives us this doorway to their inner self, and we know them better. And so when they don't meet those expectations, they let us down, it's devastating inside.
Well, because this is the deepest layer that we chose. Like, this is a choice. This is our first real choice.
I let you in. I gave you the key.
Like I ignited you. I allowed you to be in my presence. Right. I gave you that gift. How dare you?
You're part of the brotherhood now. I've accepted you.
Right.
You knew the rules when you came in. Like,
right.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what makes it the hardest, man. Because
Yeah.
that's the one that can let you down the most, because you have no excuse, right? For other levels of this, right? There's excuses. Like with family, we'll get to what those excuses might
Right.
be. But with the inner circle, like there is no, you're just bad judgment. And that's
Right.
that sucks, man. Not only did you hurt me, but now I have to accept the fact that I'm not as good a judge as I thought I was too. It's like a double whammy.
Right. And we won't.
No.
And we won't admit that. Even though they showed us lack of morality in so many other ways, we figured that lack of
Yes.
morality is not
Yes.
going to come back and bite me because we're
Yeah.
boys.
Yeah.
You know. But no, I mean, at this layer, this is one of those layers also that you know, if they talk real negatively about their family and stuff like that, or you know, if they do dirt on their family, if they can do that to their family, trust me, they can do it at the inner circle level. You know, whatever they did at a deeper level than this,
Yeah.
they could do it at inner circle level. These levels allow you to see how bad someone can get to you, by the way. You
Sure.
know, because if they can do it deeper, you're nothing. You're not as important as you think they are. So let's get a little bit deeper. Let's talk family. Number 2, family. Okay. This is a deeper level. See, in this level right here, this is where, for instance, like in inner circle, if I would look at you and say, Trinity, you're an idiot, like, you know what I mean? That it's going to bother you. It's going to hurt you because you know that I care for you, and you know that I think you're an intelligent person. But if I really meant that, it would bother you for a while. It would hurt you for a while, and it would probably ruin our relationship. But if when you were a child, your mother or your father called you an idiot, and they ingrained that in your head, that you know, that's deeper. You can live the rest of your life trying to somehow not be an idiot. You know, so this is the line between your inner circle. Those of you that think that you created your own family at inner circle level, yeah, but family really is that deeper level. This one right here puts you in therapy for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah.
If somebody wounds you at the family level, it's so deeply painful. This is where most of our horrific murders are. This is where our sexual abuse lives and resides more often than in strangers. I mean, we spend so much time saying, don't talk to strangers, don't talk to strangers. Look, the people within your family are more dangerous to you and yourself than anybody that's a stranger. Don't talk to strangers. A stranger might save your life. Your family sometimes allows someone to harm you and ignore it. And that is a hell of a lot more painful when family members know it and don't do anything about it. So let's talk about family. What do you think?
Yeah, well, that's why one of the phrases I've heard numerous times in my life is, you know, you hurt the ones you love, right? Like, why is that so accepted? Like, I don't know why we all just accept that. Yeah, man. Wow. All right. So family.
By the way, before you go into that, this is where trust is created.
Yeah.
Your trust
everything is created, man.
Is built at the level of family.
Your sense of self, like who you're going to be for the rest of your life, how you look at things, your prism that you view the world is all established here. Right? I think it's like a double caveat for me though. When you said family, first off, I was thinking, you know, as you age and get older, family. And I was thinking, well, I don't really have a whole lot with that, right? Because I wasn't really interacting with my family. My brother I've seen twice in like 30 years.
Right.
So it's like, you know, it doesn't really bother me that much. That's the one half of it, right? So as you're getting older and you're consciously aware of what's happening around you and who you're interacting with, that's one side of the family. That's a little bit easier to navigate, I think, sometimes. The other side of the family is what you were talking about at the top of this, and that's like early on.
0 to 5, man.
Yeah, man, that is so much more important than like I don't think any of us really know. And there's been so much studies and data, and every psychologist and therapist will tell you how I still think we're only scratching the surface on how impactful, either positive or negative, that can, your first, like you said, 0 to 5. It's I can't even it's hard for me to even find the words on how much it impacts us, because everything you're doing right now in your life, whether you realize it or not, was set early on as your childhood.
Right.
Like the things that you like, the people you gravitate to, the things that you value, how you make decisions, what you like, what you don't like. It's all stacked on top of experiences and what neural pathways, I'm assuming, that were formulated as a kid. You know, hey, I do this, then this is happening. and I like that, I want more of it, or I don't like that, I want less of it. That all started really early, and you learned
Right.
how to navigate that. You learned how to respond to that like an amoeba, right? You just kind of like you weren't consciously learning it, but your neural pathways, your subconscious self was deciding do more of this or do less of that. And the problem is, because it's like a subconscious thing, it's still there. It's still there on some level. I don't care how old you are listening to this. Your day-to-day decisions are still in some way, shape, or form guided by the things that happen to you 0 to 5.
100%.
And that scares the hell out of me as a father, by the way.
Right. No, because look, this is the look. If you distrust others, you got that at this level.
Yeah.
You got that within your family. If you're hurtful to others, you got that from your family. If you're mean to other people, you got that from your family. If you're loving to other people, you got that from your family. One way or another, you got it from this net of individuals.
Yep.
You know, this is the place where in that 0 to 5 nurturing, if there's a flaw or a negative interaction within that 0 to 5 nurturing, you're forever living your life as a result of that person and having to kind of deal with the remnants of that, whether you create it or not. And most of us did not create it. It
No.
wasn't created. I mean, we're adapting to the situation. You know what I mean? And so this is that part where when you see somebody behaving like a bad seed, this is why people go, wow, man, what did your mother or father do to you? Don't you have a mom? Don't you have
Yeah.
a dad? And then you look at them and you go, man, they come from good parents. Yeah, but there was something that happened that was internalized differently. So from the outside looking in, yeah, they were great people. They were great parents, but there was something that got interpreted differently. It might have happened within the community, but the family didn't protect them.
Yeah.
Or they have the perception that the family didn't protect them, didn't save me, didn't believe me, something.
It's not always on purpose. It's not always on purpose either, right? Like, I think that's important to say.
This can be so accidental.
Yeah, like, you got to remember, man, like that's actually how I personally was able to finally forgive my dad from all the things I experienced. Was, growing up, I had all this angst and anger because I was mad at this person who did these things to me, because on some level, in my mind, he did it on purpose, right? In my mind, on some level, I just wasn't good enough, and so therefore he did these things. I had to, as I got older, I had to realize that I don't think he woke up and was like, "Hey, I want to be a terrible father." Right. I think he went through a lot of things as a father, or as a son. This is back in the 50s. There was a whole different dynamic in the family back in the 50s. And so I think he had a lot of trauma and pain that he never healed from.
Right.
As we got older, some stuff has come out that he might have also had some mental health issues as well. My point being is those unhealed traumas, he took those out on all of us. I don't think he purposely did it, but it doesn't change the end result. The end result is it impacted us. And so, like, that's why it was so important for me when I realized I was having kids, was to do as much inner work as I could, because I didn't want to pass it on to my kids. I didn't want them to bear the brunt of my childhood, that the parts of my childhood that were injurious. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, and that's why I said at the beginning of my little thing here about the caveat with family. I do think that most people think family and they think now, like, oh, my brother, which is important, right? But as an adult, it's so much easier just to set boundaries. Right. But as a child, you can't do boundaries. You don't have the choice, right? You can try, but like, you don't get to control where you spend your time and who you hang out with and what you do or don't do. Like, they can physically overpower you, they can emotionally overpower you, and so. Yeah, dude, it is extremely impactful. But like I said, it's not always on purpose. Right. Like, I'm fully aware. I've accepted the fact that I'm sending my kids to therapy at some point. Right. I'm not knowingly doing it, but I guarantee you, because I'm not a perfect individual and I've had trauma, most of which I've tried to heal from. Some of it I probably am not even aware of yet. Who knows? And I'm subconsciously passing it on to them. Right. It might not even, it's not on purpose, right? Like that one time, my daughter wants me to go, look at her Roblox, and I told her I couldn't right now because I was busy doing something. I have no idea how, like, in that exact moment, how that's going to impact her.
Yeah.
Maybe for whatever reason, to me, it was just like, dude, I was just playing Roblox with you yesterday, or, I'm going to do it again tomorrow. But for whatever reason, in that exact moment, because I wasn't making myself available, 20 years from now, that's going to be the reason why she does whatever. Like, that's what scares the hell out of me because I'm aware of how important that stuff is.
Well, we know this because I don't know if you've done this, but I've done it where I've shared a moment in my memory that was very, traumatic or painful to me. And my family looks at me like, what are you talking about? I don't even remember that.
Yeah.
It was nothing to them.
Yeah.
But to me, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
Right. And this is that point of like, look, I'm a girl dad.
Same.
This is the part where I used to be like, well, I got to make sure my daughters don't have daddy issues because girls with daddy issues go out with guys the way I used to be, or they end up on poles and dancing and doing all kinds of stuff that I just didn't want to have happen. I was worried about all that because I know how self-injurious some of those behaviors can be.
Yeah.
No matter how in control that female may be, they're not in control up here. Right.
Yeah.
They're hurting themselves. They're perpetuating the abuse. They're perpetuating the problem internally, the self-hatred or the negativity. And I didn't want that. I wanted them to love themselves and feel beautiful and all that stuff. So this is that level where if you're damaged at this level, sometimes you can't even conceptualize how damaging it could be. And you said that we needed to do a show later to even see if we needed to go back in there and therapize that or not. So we'll do that on a later date, a later show. But this is a pretty deep rooted issue. But we're running short of time, and we got to get to self.
Sure,
right?
Let's do it.
The self, right?
Yep.
This is the deepest level. This is the center core. This is you. This is me. Nobody has lied to me more than me. Nobody has manipulated me more than me. Nobody has hurt me more than me. Nobody has put me in worse situations than myself. Nobody has done more damage to me, conned me the most, lied to me the most, cheated on me the most, stolen from me the most. And yet it's easier to look at strangers and everybody else that has done that to me and blame all of them than to blame myself, because that is a level of processing that is just difficult to process. You mean I have a choice? I can't imagine having a choice to feel differently. I can't imagine when someone says you're choosing to feel that way, or you're choosing to behave in that way, and me struggling with understanding that early on. So go ahead, self.
Yeah, well, it brings a whole new meaning to you're your own worst enemy, right? So for me on my journey in spirituality, that was the most impactful moment for me, was when I realized that I'm doing it to myself, and I don't have to. Like, still to this day, I don't even know how many years it's been now. That's one of my favorite things to teach new people. Is the third truth is you don't have to suffer, because it's the most liberating thing, man. Like I'm doing it to myself, and I still do it, mind you. Like, just because I'm aware of it and I'm working it, that we're human. We make mistakes all the time. Like 99% of the hurtful moments that I have in my own home, like with my own wife, it's me. Right? Like it's my own expectations. It's my own interpretation of whatever it is that she just said or did. My wife is not, knowingly or purposely saying something to offend me. She's just living her life and said something. I'm the one who took it and narrated it and interpreted it and turned it into something that hurt me. And then I lashed back out, so I still do it. I try not to. I'm better at it now than I was, years ago. And hopefully tomorrow I'm better at it than I was today, but it's still there. And I did that, right? Like, it wasn't her. I did that. And yeah, that's a big one, man. That's why I said expectations, because that's what I was talking about. As we get higher up in this ranking, expectations become higher, like more and more important. And so when it comes to self, yeah, dude, the other person didn't really hurt you. It was your expectations that hurt you. Now, I'm not saying that the person who comes home and like slaps you around or something, of course, man, that's terrible. But I'm not talking about the polar opposites here. I'm talking about the majority of the time, our day-to-day interactions with stuff. That's how you hurt yourself. In the 12 steps to say resentments, what was it? Resentments lead to
premeditated resentments.
Yeah, expectations lead to resentments. Yeah, because the thing I tell people all the time, it was like, look, which would piss you off more? If a person walks in and pushes you unexpectedly, they just randomly just walks up and pushes you, or the person who when that person shows up, they're going to push you.
Right.
Well, the unexpected always is going to piss you off more. Like, if you know what's going to happen, you're expecting it, it happens, okay, whatever. You've had time to process. It's the unexpected. It's because you expected in that moment nobody was going to push you, and then they did. That's what hurts your feelings, not the action itself. Because most actions, if you knew it was coming, most actions you'd be able to explain away or process, and you can
Right.
deal with it. It's the fact that it went against what you expected to happen right now. That's what hurt you, and you do it all day long. From the second you wake up until the second you go to bed, you're formulating expectations of how the day is going to go unfold. You're expecting to wake up on time. You're expecting to not hit every red light. You're expecting that, when you open the refrigerator, your coffee's going to be whatever, or you're expecting the car to start when you get out there in the morning time. You're expecting not to have a flat tire. You're expecting their coworkers to greet you. You're all these expectations that when you look back at the end of the day, if you look at all the things that upset you or pissed you off, or if somebody asked you if you had a bad day, all the explanations on why it was a bad day, if you look back on it, you're going to probably notice it was your expectations. Like, those people were just living their life. You expected them to do other.
Yeah. And your sense of self, this is the one that you drowned in alcohol. This is the
Yeah.
one that you intoxicate. This is the one that you say you're screaming in so much pain and you're crying so much that I gotta get you high to just shut up. I don't want to hear you. I don't want to hear that inner voice. That inner voice that we have is the one that will never ever quiet. No matter how popular you become, no matter how wealthy you become, no matter how successful you become, if at this level you're attacking yourself, if at the level of self you're injuring yourself with negative self-talk and image, it doesn't matter. You could be the most beautiful person in the world and believe you're completely ugly. You could be very intelligent and worthy and feel so unworthy and stupid. This is a very difficult level to allow to be in pain. This is where cutters are. When people cut themselves in, you wonder, if you know a cutter or have heard one and go like, man, how could someone do that? Because this is at the level of injury they're at. Because as painful as that cutting can be, at least they're in control of it. And that's what they'll say, but I control the pain.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's just like in the level of family. If at that level of family you were injured dramatically, if they don't accept you, for those of you that are, because we're in Pride Month, are in the LGBTQ community, if at that level of family you're not accepted, it's easier to go to the strangers and get mad at them for how they view you, but it's because you're trying to heal that family part. They didn't accept you, but you can't fight them. You can't change them. So you go out to the strangers out in the community and the strangers beyond and try to get them to accept you. And that's where your fight is at, because really you can never come back here and do the fight where it really needs to be and where you're really in pain, which is in the family and your sense of self. And that's why you have to heal there. If you're okay with who you are and what you are at this core level, it really doesn't matter what the rest of us think. It's irrelevant. Those of us that are comfortable in our sense of self on a certain topic area are not injured by people out there because we have no button. But at the level of self, if this is where you're injured, this is where we create that button, and we walk around with this big old Flavor Flav size button. And everybody, as big as Flavor Flav's clock, you understand that. But I gotta create an image for those that don't understand or don't know who Flavor Flav is. He wore this big old clock.
Flavor Flav.
So, that's right. So if you're injured at the sense of self and you carry around a big old button the size of Flavor Flav's clock and wonder why are people angering me and hitting my butt, because you got your big old button showing and you make me want to touch it. You make me want to push it. Matter of fact, you just see me and you push it on yourself. Some of you just see somebody, you start pushing a button on yourself. You want to be angry because you can't heal yourself, because you can't change your family, because your inner circle hurt you and busted you up. So you go out into the community and blame us, and you go out to strangers and blame them, and you try to heal from the outside in. When you can't heal from the outside in, you can only heal from the inside out. And that was the reason I wanted to have this show today. Trini, final words, please.
Yeah, I'd say healing the self, it starts with compassion for yourself. We're so good at giving compassion to other people. We're so good at giving compassion to dogs and animals and stuff. We're not that great at giving compassion to ourselves. And oftentimes that compassion is forgiving yourself for not knowing what you didn't know, or just straight up forgiving. And you got to forgive daily, every day. Forgive yourself. God, I can't. Self-compassion is so important, man. You know,
That's
we try to motivate ourselves the way we would never motivate other people. We would never tell that little kid who came to us, "Yeah, you're dumb. I can't believe you stupid idiot."
Right.
But we talk to ourselves that way. So yeah,
Right.
man. Start with compassion and forgiveness for yourself.
Right. And I learned to love myself through Dana. I say it all the time. Dana loved me before I learned to love me. I think sometimes you just have to allow someone get real close and real deep and believe them. They just might be telling you the truth. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, the Dharma guy has told you the truth today. The dope doctor, me, I've told you the truth today. We are the Couch Live. We are Dope and Dharma. Trinity, one more time, how can they follow us? How can they stay tuned to the next show or other shows that we've done?
Yeah, you can go on social media and follow him at the Dope Doctor. I'm at the Dharma Guy. We're both at Dope and Dharma. Or you can check us out on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch under Dope and Dharma and all of your major podcasting platforms. Also under Dope and Dharma.
Thank you very much, people like Marissa who listens and watches on Facebook Live. We appreciate you so very much. Thank you to everybody here at WOKB 1680 AM or 100.7 FM on the dial in Orlando. Yes, I said the dial, Trinity. Shaw, take it away from here. Take it away and go ahead and go to the rest of the programming here at WOKB 1680. Adios, amigos. It's time for a taco. Goodbye.